My first rule as a search and rescue officer. If the missing person doesn't want to be found, you leave them. Welcome to the Wilderness Protocol. The documents we file are records of fact. Wind speed, temperature, grid coordinates, time of discovery. They are cold, hard, and clean. They tell a story of logistics, of manpower, of success or failure. But they never tell the truth. Not the whole truth. Because the truth doesn't fit neatly into a 3-ring binder. The truth has roots that go deeper than any tree. And it whispers in a language that predates words. I am a search and rescue officer. For 15 years, my job, my entire purpose, has been to walk into the places people get lost and bring them out. But to do this job, to survive it, you must first learn the most important rule. It's the one they don't teach you in training. It's the one whispered to you by a senior officer on your first real backcountry search. When the trees get too thick and the air gets too still. It is the first and last rule of our protocol. If the missing person doesn't want to be found, you leave them. This is the story of how I learned that rule. And the price of learning it. My name is Jacob, and when I started, I was full of the kind of naive confidence only a 24-year-old can possess. I had aced all my certification: triangle rescue, wilderness first responder, land navigation. I saw the forest as a complex but solvable puzzle. A set of variables to be managed. I believed in my compass, my GPS, and the fundamental desire of every lost human being to be found. I was wrong. The call came in on a crisp October afternoon. A young man named Ethan Hayes, a college student, had gone for a day hike in the Stillwater Range and hadn't returned. His roommate had reported him missing when he didn't show up for his evening class. It was a standard case. Young hiker, likely overconfident, probably underestimated the terrain or the speed at which the weather can turn in the mountains. We've handled dozens like it. My supervisor at the time was a woman named Maria. She was in her late 50s, with a face that looked like a topographical map of the very land we patrolled, all sharp lines, deep creases, and a pair of eyes that held the flat, calm gray of a winter lake. She had been with SAR for 30 years. People said she didn't just know the forest, she had an understanding with it. We set up the incident command post at the trailhead where Ethan's car was found. The mood was professional, focused. We had maps spread across the hoods of trucks, teams being assigned search grids. I was champing at the bit, ready to go, ready to be the hero who found the kid. Maria pulled me aside just as my team was about to head out. Jacob, she said, her voice low, cutting through the general chatter. This is your first deep backcountry search in the Stillwaters, right? Yes, ma'am, I said, trying to contain my excitement. Ready to go. She didn't smile. She just held my gaze for a moment too long. There are things you need to know about this range. Things that aren't in the training manual. She gestured for me to walk with her, away from the others toward the edge of the woods. The trees seemed to swallow the sound, the air growing still and quiet around us. We operate on a simple principle out here, she began, her eyes scanning the forest canopy. We are guests. This land is ancient, and it has its own rhythms, its own inhabitants. Most of the time they don't mind us. But sometimes people get lost and they wander into places they shouldn't. And sometimes those places offer them something. Offer them something? I asked, confused. Like what? Shelter. A faint, sad smile touched her lips. Something like that. Peace. An escape. A belonging they couldn't find back in the world. The point is, they are given a choice. And some of them accept. I must have looked completely bewildered, because she sighed and stopped walking. Listen to me carefully, Jacob. This is the most important thing you will ever learn. You may find signs, things that don't make sense. You may even find Ethan. But you need to know how to tell if he is still ours. If he is still a lost person who needs rescuing. How do I tell? You'll know, she said, and the certainty in her voice was chilling. You might find him in a place that feels wrong. A small meadow that's too green. A grove of trees where there's no wind. He might be calm. Too calm. But the definitive sign, the one that ends the search, is what we call a silent cairn. A silent cairn? Yes. A small stack of 3, maybe 4, perfectly balanced river-smooth stones. But they're not normal stones. When you get near one, all sound will cease. Not just the birds or the wind. Everything. The sound of your own heartbeat in your ears. The sound of your breath. Complete, total, unnatural silence. These are markers. They are declarations. They mean the person who built it has accepted the forest's offer. They are no longer lost. They are claimed. I stared at her, trying to process the sheer absurdity of what she was saying. So if I find a stack of rocks that's quiet, I'm supposed to just what? Turn around. Yes, she said, her voice firm as stone. You do not touch the cairn. You do not speak to the person. You do not try to persuade them. You do not, under any circumstances, try to force them to come with you. You avert your eyes, you turn around, you walk away, and you report back to me that the subject is a code 418. Code 418? What's that? Unrecoverable, she said flatly. The official report will list the subject as lost, presumed deceased. We call off the active search. We've done our duty. Our duty is to save him. I blurted out, the idealism in me finally boiling over. That's insane, Maria. We can't just abandon someone because they're stacking rocks. Her eyes, which had been calm and gray, hardened into flint. She took a step closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You think this is a choice, kid? You think this is about cruelty? Let me tell you about a ranger named David Chun. Young, strong, idealistic, just like you. 10 years ago, he found a missing woman sitting by a stream, building one of those cairns. He ignored the protocol. He said she was just in shock. He walked up to her, took her by the arm and said, "Ma'am, let's get you home." He tried to pull her away from the cairn she was building. She paused, letting the silence hang heavy between us. The forest didn't like that. It doesn't like it when you try to take back what has been freely given. David brought her back, but something came with them. His wife started hearing whispers in their house. Their dog would whine and stare at empty corners. One night, David found a single, smooth river stone on his daughter's pillow. He broke, packed up his family and left the state overnight. Never came back. The woman he rescued? She walked out of the hospital 2 days later and was never seen again. She just walked back into the woods. She stared at me, her gaze pinning me in place. The rule is not for them, Jacob. It's for us. It's a boundary. It's what keeps this side of the line safe. If you find Ethan and he doesn't want to be found, you leave him. That is an order. Am I understood? I swallowed hard, the confidence draining out of me, replaced by a cold, creeping unease. Understood, I mumbled. The first 2 days of the search were exhausting and fruitless. We combed the designated grids, finding nothing but a few old granola bar wrappers and the usual signs of wildlife. The weather was clear, the terrain was manageable. It was a perfectly normal, frustrating search. Ethan Hayes had simply vanished. On the morning of the 3rd day, my team was assigned a new grid, pushing further west, into the Stillwater Range proper. This was where the official trails began to fade, where the forest grew thicker, older. The mood of the team shifted. The usual jokes and chatter died down. The woods here felt different. The air was heavy, and the silence between bird calls seemed to last a little too long. We were following a dry creek bed when I saw it. Tucked under the roots of a massive overturned fir tree was a camera. It was a high-end digital SLR, caked in mud but seemingly intact. "Hold up," I called out to my team. I carefully retrieved the camera. It was Ethan's. His name was on the strap. We huddled around as I powered it on. The battery was almost dead, but it worked. I scrolled through the photos. The first dozen were what you'd expect. Majestic shots of mountains, a selfie of him grinning by a waterfall, a close-up of a vibrant crimson mushroom. Then I switched to the video files. There was only one. It was labeled simply, "Gift." I pressed play. The video was shaky, handheld. Ethan was breathing hard. He was filming not himself, but a small sun-dappled clearing ahead. In the center of the clearing sat an old woman on a fallen log. She was impossibly old, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, her hair thin and white as milkweed fluff. She was dressed in simple homespun clothes that looked like they belonged in a museum. "Don't know who she is," Ethan's voice whispered from behind the camera. "Been following this weird trail for an hour. She was just here. Waiting." The old woman on screen looked up directly at the camera. Her eyes were pale, almost colorless, but they held a strange, knowing kindness. She smiled, a gentle, toothless expression. Then she beckoned with one gnarled finger. Ethan on the video hesitated. "Should I?" he whispered to himself. He took a few tentative steps forward. The old woman reached into a leather pouch at her side and pulled something out. It was a small, intricately carved wooden bird, no bigger than his thumb. She held it out to him, her palm open. "She wants me to take it," Ethan's voice said, a mix of fear and fascination. The camera moved closer. Ethan's hand came into frame, reaching for the small carving. The moment his fingers touched the wood, the old woman's smile widened, and she whispered something. The audio was too faint to make out clearly, but it sounded like, "Welcome, child." The video cut out. A heavy silence fell over my team. One of the other rangers, a guy named Sam, shook his head. "Creepy as hell. What do you think, Jake?" I didn't answer right away. I was thinking of Maria's words. Sometimes those places offer them something. A gift. "I think we need to push west," I said, my voice tight. "He took something from her. He made a deal." The others looked at me like I was crazy, but they followed. The sense of being a guest in a place that didn't want me grew stronger with every step. The forest became quieter. The air grew still, and the light filtering through the dense canopy took on a strange, golden quality, as if we were walking through honey. An hour later we found a footprint. A single clear print from Ethan's hiking boot, pressed deep into the moss beside a stream. But it was what was next to it that made me stop. A second set of prints. They were barefoot, small and strangely deep, as if the person making them weighed far more than they should. They walked alongside Ethan's tracks. He wasn't alone. We followed the tracks. They led us away from the creek, up a gentle slope into a part of the forest I had never seen before. It was a grove of ancient, gnarled aspen trees, their white bark peeling like old parchment. The ground was a carpet of soft, impossibly green moss, and the air was completely, utterly still. There was no wind. Not a single leaf trembled. It was like walking into a photograph. And in the center of the grove we found him. Ethan Hayes was sitting on the ground, his back against the trunk of the largest aspen. He was not injured. He was not distressed. He was serene. His eyes were closed, a faint, peaceful smile on his face. In his hands he was cradling the small wooden bird from the video. And at his feet was a small, perfect stack of 3 smooth gray river stones. A silent cairn. I held up a hand, stopping my team. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. This was it. The moment of truth. I took a slow, deliberate step forward, and the world went silent. It wasn't a gradual fading. It was instantaneous. One moment I could hear the distant rustle of my team's gear, the sound of my own ragged breath. The next there was nothing. A total, profound, vacuum-like absence of sound. It was the most unnerving thing I have ever experienced. It felt like the universe had muted itself just for me. This was real. Maria's warning, the story of David Chun, the code, it was all real. I stood there, maybe 10 feet from Ethan, trapped in that bubble of crushing silence. My training, my ethics, my very identity as a rescuer were at war with the cold, primal fear that was now gripping me. He was right there. He was alive. All I had to do was walk over, shake his shoulder and say, "Son, let's go home." But the cairn sat there, a quiet, unmovable declaration. He is ours now. My team was watching me, their faces a mixture of confusion and concern. They couldn't hear what I couldn't hear. They just saw me frozen, staring at the lost hiker. They were waiting for my command. I couldn't abandon him. I couldn't. It was a betrayal of everything I stood for. I decided to compromise. I wouldn't touch him. I wouldn't cross into his immediate space. But I would speak. I had to try. It was a fatal mistake. My lips felt dry, cracked. I opened my mouth, and the sound of my own voice was a violent, shocking intrusion into the silence. Ethan. The moment his name left my lips, everything changed. Ethan's eyes snapped open. The serenity was gone, replaced by a look of pure animal terror. The faint smile on his face vanished, twisted into a silent of a scream that never came. His knuckles went white as he clutched the wooden bird. The cairn at his feet trembled, and the top stone fell to the mossy ground with a soft, soundless thud. The bubble of silence shattered. Sound rushed back in, but it was all wrong. A low, guttural growl seemed to emanate from the trees around us. The still air began to stir, carrying a scent of damp earth and something else, something old and possessive. And from behind the large aspen tree that Ethan was leaning against, a figure emerged. It was the old woman from the video, the whispering crone. She was not smiling anymore. Her face, which had seemed kindly on camera, was now a mask of ancient fury. Her pale eyes were fixed on me, burning with a cold, proprietary light. She raised a single, gnarled finger and pointed it at me. And she spoke. Her voice was not the whisper from the video. It was a dry, rustling sound, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. And it said one word. Thief. Panic, cold and absolute, finally took over. Back. I screamed at my team. Everybody back now. We turned and scrambled out of the grove, crashing through the undergrowth, the wrongness of that place clinging to us like a shroud. I didn't look back to see if she was following. I didn't need to. I could feel her. I could feel the entire forest's attention now turned on us, cold and hostile. We were no longer guests. We were intruders. We were thieves who had tried to steal something that had been paid for with a gift. We ran blindly, our professional composure shattered. The forest, which had been still and golden, now seemed dark and tangled. Branches seemed to reach for us. Roots seemed to trip us. The path we had followed in was gone, swallowed by the shifting landscape. We were lost, and the forest knew it. That's when the voices started. Jacob. It was Maria's voice, seeming to come from just over my right shoulder. You broke the rule, Jacob. Why did you break the rule? It's not real, I muttered, pushing a low-hanging branch from my face. It's in my head. Help me, Jake. Sam, one of my teammates, cried out from behind me. My leg, I think it's broken. I turned. Sam was 20 feet back, leaning against a tree, his face pale with pain. But as I started towards him, another teammate, a woman named Clara, grabbed my arm. Don't, she hissed, her eyes wide with terror. Look at his shadow. I looked. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Our shadows were long and thin. Sam's shadow was wrong. It was too short, too squat, and it seemed to have too many limbs. I'm not leaving him, I shouted, pulling my arm free. But as I took a step, the Sam leaning against the tree smiled. A wide, unnatural grin that didn't belong on his face. You should have listened, he said. His voice a perfect imitation of our teammate, but the cadence was all wrong. Then his form seemed to flicker like a bad TV signal, and for a split second, I saw the face of the whispering crone superimposed over his. We didn't wait. We ran, leaving the thing that looked like Sam behind. The real Sam, who had been ahead of me, just kept running, his face a mask of white terror. The forest was playing with us now. It was using our own team against us, using our bonds of trust as a weapon. We were no longer a unit. We were four terrified individuals running for our lives. Night fell, and with it came a deeper, more personal horror. We were huddled together, trying to get a fire started with damp wood, when I heard my father's voice. He'd been dead for 5 years. "You were always a disappointment, son," it whispered from the darkness just beyond our firelight. Couldn't even follow one simple rule. I squeezed my eyes shut, my hands over my ears, but the voice was inside my head now. It dredged up every failure, every regret, every shame I had ever felt, and laid them bare. The forest wasn't just trying to scare us. It was trying to break us from the inside out. I don't know how long we stumbled through that nightmare. Felt like days. We ran out of water. Our radios were useless, emitting only soft, mocking static that sometimes sounded like laughter. We were being herded, driven deeper into the heart of the still waters. It was Clara who remembered the last part of Maria's protocol, something she had mentioned almost as an afterthought. "If it turns on you if you break the peace," she had said, "you have to give something back. A tribute. Something of your own. Something that matters. Leave it at the base of the oldest tree you can find and walk away. It's an apology." We were on the verge of collapse, huddled at the base of a cliff face when we saw it. A single, colossal redwood, far older and larger than any other tree in the vicinity. It must have been thousands of years old. Its bark was a tapestry of deep fissures and moss, and its roots were like the knuckles of a giant hand gripping the earth. This was it. The oldest tree. We had to give it something. We emptied our pockets. A pocket knife, a compass, a lighter. They all felt insignificant. "It has to be something that matters," Clara whispered, her voice cracking. She took off the silver locket she always wore, the one with the picture of her kids inside. She placed it gently among the roots of the tree. Sam took out a worn, leather-bound copy of a book his father had given him and placed it next to the locket. It was my turn. I thought of everything I had. My gear was just equipment. My watch was just a tool. Nothing felt personal enough. Nothing felt like a worthy apology for the sacrilege I had committed. Then I remembered. In an inside pocket of my pack, wrapped in a plastic bag, was the last photo ever taken of me and my brother before he passed away. It was the single most precious object I owned. My hands trembled as I took it out. I looked at our smiling faces one last time. Then I placed the photograph at the base of the great tree, next to the locket and the book. "We're sorry," I whispered to the ancient wood, to the silent forest. "We didn't understand." We turned our backs on the tree and our offerings, and we walked away. We didn't look back. And as we walked, a change occurred. The oppressive weight in the air began to lift. The whispers in my mind faded. The forest, which had felt like a predator, a tangled maze of malice, slowly became just a forest again. An hour later, we stumbled upon a marked trail. And by dawn, we were at the edge of the park road, where a search team, their faces etched with relief and confusion, found us. The official report said that our team had gotten lost, suffered from group hysteria due to dehydration and exhaustion. Ethan Hayes was never found. His case was closed, filed away as another tragedy in the unforgiving wilderness. Code 418. Unrecoverable. I was the team lead. The failure was mine. But Maria didn't fire me. She didn't even reprimand me. When I finally returned to the command post, she just looked at me with those sad, gray eyes. "Now you know," she said, and that was all. I have led many searches since that day. I have found people and I have saved them, but I have also found others. I have stood at the edge of silent meadows. I have seen the strange, peaceful smiles on their faces, and I have seen the silent cairns at their feet. And I have honored the protocol. I have averted my eyes. I have reported them as Code 418. And I have walked away, leaving a small piece of my own soul behind with each one. Because I learned the hard way that our job is not to save everyone. Our job is to keep the boundary, to not steal what has been willingly given to the ancient, hungry heart of the wilderness. Some people are not meant to be found, and if you are very, very lucky, you will never have to be the one to find them. Thank you for joining us for this debriefing from the Wilderness Protocol. There are rules that govern the civilized world, and there are older, deeper rules that govern the wild places in between. The wisest among us learn which to follow, and when. If this record resonated with you, and you wish to access more of our restricted files, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Every new operative helps us maintain the protocol. Until our next dispatch, be careful where you wander. Not all who are lost wish to be found.